Welcome to another episode of the Poultry Keepers Podcast. I know this may sound crazy since fall's just officially getting underway, but breeding season will be here before we know it. Are your birds ready? If they're not, there's still time to get them prepared. That's exactly what Jeff Mattocks and Carey Blackmon will be talking about in this episode, so let's turn it over to them now.
Jeff, how's your week been?
I don't know if it's the moon phase, if it's the season change, what it is. This week has been insanely busy. I don't understand where it's coming from, but you know what? I guess I should be thankful for it. Otherwise, I'd be complaining about being bored, but that hasn't happened in a long time. So,
Jeff, I've been knowing you, 3 years now?
I think 3 years.
Something like that. And I've heard you complain about a decent amount of stuff. I have never in my life heard you complain about being bored.
Yeah, I'm one of those stupid people that if I have free time on my hands, I find something new to do. I can't just do nothing. And I got to quit doing that.
I've talked to my wife about it because my schedule is pretty tight. But she told me, she said, you know something? That's who you are. That's part of you is staying busy and helping people. And she said, to be honest, if you weren't busy or helping somebody or both, would you be you? I don't know, but wouldn't mind a down day every now and then.
Every now and then I'll take a weekend or a day on the weekend and just sit and try and do nothing, like binge watch Band of Brothers or something like that.
That's a good one. So she actually asked me yesterday or the day before. She said, what do you got going on Saturday? And I just looked at her. And she said, seriously, what do you got going on? I said, I hope and pray nothing. We'll see how it works out. But that's what I'm hoping. I had a piglet or pig sow the other day. I was out there and that heifer, she don't quite look like her sisters. No, she ain't done got pregnant. I went and caught her. I've never felt a pregnant pig before, but I have felt a pregnant woman's belly before. When they're in that last trimester and the baby looks more like an alien moving around. And surprisingly enough, I did have a pregnancy. And then I was like, I wonder how far along she is. A couple hours ago, I got a picture from my daughter. She said, there's 6. So I have 6 baby pigs at home.
Are you sure she's done?
She's moving around. And my daughter, she helps feed. And she said she would not let me anywhere close to them. Like I said, I'm glad that at least her mothering instinct is that far developed. And she was moving around. I don't know. Do they get up and walk around and then pop another one out?
Sometimes they don't know. Like there'll be a pause in the labor, and you can have a surprise an hour or 2 or even longer.
Okay.
So you don't know. But
so this is first time for her.
Right. Actually, for a coon and being a first time, 6 is probably the right number. That's a pretty good number for a coon on a first litter.
This one, she's 2 feet tall, 18 inches wide, decent size. I've got one of my boars is probably 325 pounds. He's about ready for the breakfast table.
It's about all you're going to do with him. If you've used him for breeding and he's been around sows and gilts for a while, you make him into a good spicy sausage that has a fair amount of sage and garlic in it. So just say it. Look, we're here to talk about chickens. We're here to talk about you. They're excited. I know you're excited.
You just started talking about sausage and you're probably fixing to say something about bacon. And I was going to have to talk to Sue and Laura and see if we could just have a breakfast show.
There we go.
Yeah.
I got a feeling there's going to be enough fat on that old boar that you can cook down a lot of lard.
I was going to say, Sue just said that, but we'll find out because I am going to keep it all. Tonight, we're here to talk about getting ready for breeding season. And when I first mentioned it to Jeff, he had that same reaction. He kind of laughed. And I was like, I said, Jeff, let's really look at this, because the first time I thought I was ready for breeding season, I wasn't. Far from it. And I was behind the 8 ball when I was getting started. So that's why I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's have a good conversation about breeding season, what it should look like, and all that. So our new listeners, watchers, can figure out that, like me, my first go around that first time I felt like I had it under control. I was popping out chicks left and right. Everything was going good. We're great. And then I started hanging out with guys that knew a lot more about how it really should, like you and Rip and Jennifer and Mandy and Karen. I've learned a lot last several years. I thought my granddaddy taught a lot. So the next season, I got all my ducks in a row. So hopefully we can help somebody bypass that.
Look, it doesn't matter what stage you are in your poultry journey, right? There is always something new to learn. That is, if your mind is open and things can still enter in, there's always something new to learn, right?
I have always said, if you're not a student of your craft, you're going to fail sooner or later bad. You got to be a student of your craft or it's not going to work out.
No argument. No argument at all.
Because for me, I thought breeding season, I'm going to put 3 or 4 hens with a rooster. They all look good. Boom, I'm set. And another area, I had a really good rooster and I had a layer flock of Isa Browns. And they're like the Heinz 57 of the chicken world that's actually productive. And they prolific layers. So I was like, I'd got me a tabletop incubator. Okay. Hatched a couple out. I don't know what kind of drug you would call that. If like it's a hatching drug or chicken something. I don't know what you would call it, but it got me. And I was hooked. So I bought a cabinet incubator. I went straight from Nurture Right 360 to a Hatching Time CT 180. No in between. And I was hatching out chicks left and right. And then I found out that I was a hatcher. I wasn't a breeder. And I really started thinking about stuff. And in your mind, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but for somebody that's wanting to set up a breeding program and actually breed birds in their backyard, whether they want to hatch out 10 or 1,000, what is the most important place they should start?
Oh, man, that's a really tough question because you're asking a person who does nutrition every day, but it actually isn't a nutrition thing, right? It is evaluating your birds and finding the hen and rooster with the least amount of defects and starting there. And hopefully you've got a couple hens to choose from to go with that rooster, 2, 3, something like that. But if you're starting with what's already in your backyard, I agree with Sue. You hunt down the best birds you can afford. But starting like you did, right, for the brand new breeder, it's looking at body type, body depth. You're just looking for what you want down the road in what you're doing, right? So it's going to be selecting the best overall birds with the least amount of defects or problems or body function issues or whatever. That's where you start.
Yeah. When the first time I asked Rip that question, he said, that depends. Where do you want to be in 5 years? And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's asking me, where do I want to be in 5 years? I don't know where to be right now. But he told me it was a very good lesson because he said that I needed to think about what I wanted for the future of my flock to know what I'm starting with and figure out how I need to get there. And I was like, that's deep. But I needed a game plan. I needed to figure out where I wanted to be. So I did that and we talked. And so then he helped me put things in order. But having that right, once you figure out a bird, for me, I started with, and I will always love a Rhode Island Red. It reminds me of my grandfather. Some of our greatest memories I have with him is messing with those and collecting eggs and stuff like that when I was knee high. So that was the direction I went, and he's helped me a lot. From this rooster has this that's not right, but the hens, theirs is perfect. So the chicks will inherit that trait from the hen. So I was able to learn how to put that together. And now Sue's bragging. She's got some dandy pullets this year. And that's good because the birds that I hatched out last year that I kept, I think I got 3 pullets and about 20 roosters. I'm hoping this year what I hatch out is heavy on the hen side. Figure that out in time. But I had to learn what I wanted, where I wanted to be, and then I had to learn what that bird should be. And I had this idea in my mind, but as the more research and stuff I did, and of course I looked at a standard of perfection, and that's where I learned what to look for. And then when he and I talked, he says, the hard part's done. And I'm like, huh?
It gets you 75% of the way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's where you go from there.
So once you have those birds, where do you go? When do you think about setting up what you're setting up to be able to hatch, say, January or February?
Again, Carey, it's what is your goal? Right? If you take the road like a breeder like Kenny Triano, right? So his goal is purposely going for the perfect bird, right? And repeatability. So when he breeds a rooster to hen within a family, he has predictability on what those chicks, what that offspring is going to look like. So if you keep honing in, and a lot of this is going to be done through line breeding and inbreeding, is eventually you're going to continue to work out these hidden, genes that you didn't even know you had. And a lot of people get scared, right? But that's further down the road. But a serious hardcore breeder, like a Kenny, even like a Rip, right? That inbreeding and line breeding is going to clean up that family as fast as anything, right?
That's what I've learned as well. A lot of people are scared of line breeding, but everything I've learned, all of my research, and from what I've seen in the brood pen, that's the best way to weed out what's sneaking in.
Depending on where you're starting from, you could be 3 to 5 generations to weed out the majority of those faults in a bird.
Yeah.
It shouldn't take you longer than that, but most people quit after 2, right? Because they see some really, really strange stuff popping out of these birds, right? You're like, oh man, we got
messed up.
I've got line breeding, what do you call it? Depression. I got
line depression. I got to bring in fresh blood.
Yeah, that is absolutely the worst thing you can ever do. Completely new and fresh blood from outside. There you go. See, Sue's saying it to you. You just don't.
You don't do it.
You don't give up just because you hit that true line breeding or inbreeding depression shows up first. The true actual depression of line breeding or inbreeding is failure to reproduce. So if you ever could actually get your poultry to a point of that where the hen won't become fertile or the rooster won't become fertile or whatever, or you get a bunch of, even if they were fertile, you have a bunch of embryonic death that you can't explain otherwise. But it actually goes back to total fertility, the inability to breed. So when line breeding goes too far or inbreeding goes too far, that's the true inbreeding depression that I've seen, right? In all other species, because this practice is done in goats and sheep and cattle and pigs and you name it, right? If they use it everywhere.
If it's on the farm, it's
And so true inbreeding depression is failure to reproduce. And that would be the only time I would consider getting something in your same line, maybe a generation or two out or from
like
another
person you got your birds from.
Right. That's what Rip was telling people the other day. If you ever think you're going to need another rooster or something, you go to somebody else who has the same line as you and collect the bird from there.
Right.
I've never actually seen poultry bred to the point where they fail to reproduce because of genetics. I've seen it where they don't reproduce because of poor quality feed, because of poor living conditions, because of poor management. But actually, where it was a genetic failure, I have not seen that yet.
To me, I think that 99% of it all boils down to management. Even when you hit that part that's genetic, the manager hasn't managed the breeding program correctly, which is why you hit that, in my opinion. I think a lot of it's on us.
A lot of the great breeding people, the families of humans that have been bred multiple generations, they've never brought outside blood in. So they're constantly, in some fashion, either line breeding or inbreeding. So in some families have had them for 50 or 60 years. Okay. One of the things I learned when I was working with Kenny Triano is the number of chromosomes and the potential of breeding repeatedly, because they're a reptile, they're not a mammal. Their gene code is closer to a reptile. It's thousands of combinations before you're going to hit a wall. So that's
hatching a lot of chicks. So we've got our birds picked out. We know what we're looking for. We're doing that. We want to start hatching, like in the South, I'm a fan of hatching in the cooler months because it's easy to keep a chick warm. And so they don't have a problem with that. In the South, I've actually had birds get too hot as 1-2-week-old chicks and die. So I would rather hatch out in a cooler month to do that. But I've started now prepping my birds for hatching out, being able to set and hatch out in December, or set in December and start hatching in January with their lighting management.
You should have everybody set at right around 11 or 12 hours and don't let it go below that. So you're holding light.
12.
You're holding light for pullets or hens is 11 hours, 11 or 12. Okay. As long as you don't let it go below that, then you keep that pretty much stable. You don't have as far to go with light stimulation when you're thinking you want to breed. Like you're going to start stimulating and breeding for December. So actually you're going to start moving your lights up in November because you're going to have to get above 14 hours to get them stimulated. And the older birds, like if you've got fourth cycle hens, fifth cycle hens, 5, 6, 7-year-olds, they may take more light stimulation. They will take more light stimulation to get them moving. The pullet does.
Right.
She's ready, right? She's ready. The pullet's ready to pop. She's not going to take a whole lot of encouragement.
Some of them will lay an egg with 8 hours of sunlight.
Right.
The pullets are the few that I do have from last year. They're already laying. But what I've done is in some of my research on lighting, because I've done a lot and you and I have had a lot of discussions about it, that 2700K spectrum is what like Hubbard Genetics and people that spend multi-millions of dollars doing research say is the best. So I found those. And then I also found it to where they're not bright. Because a lot of people think when they stimulate a bird with light, we're lighting up Yankee Stadium. But actually, when you
can overdo it.
Yeah, you study it and you read it, that actually stresses the birds out and they won't do anything.
And you got to come up gradually. So
I've checked that, and it does, like, they won't do nothing. I've used like 6500K, those super bright lights, and had the day at 14 hours, nothing. Make one change, swap that out for 2700K. They call them cool white. It's more like an overcast day, kind of. Swap it out with that. Within a week, I'm getting eggs every day.
So you did that lighting study thing and posted it about a year ago. Probably time to repost that again so people understand.
All right. I can share that.
You only need between, 10 and 20 lux, not to go over 40 lux.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is 20-foot candles. And we've talked about it. You can get the app for free on your phone, right? It's
there's a couple of them, but the one that's LUX.
That's the one I use, LUX.
Yeah.
And it's free. You just got to watch what you agree to. So there's one that they'll charge you monthly, and there's another one that's...
Take the free one.
The base model is free. And so Sue wants to know, so she needs a link where to find those light bulbs. But so you need to get all that posted in the group.
Yeah, I'll get that shared out.
But yeah, so get that app, right? And you'd be amazed at what you think is the appropriate light versus what they've studied to know is the appropriate amount of light. And it's really not much. Okay. It's just a little bit more than a good night light you plug in the wall. So I tell people enough light that you can walk through there without stumbling over a chicken. It don't take much.
I got a buddy of mine that has commercial houses up in North Alabama. And we were having this conversation last year, and he said, look, man, if I had to walk in them houses after dark or early before the sun comes up, I've got a green headlamp that I put on because the light coming in from the sun coming in from the side, along with the lights, you can not trip over a chicken, which, I mean, they're packed in pretty tight in there. But he said, if the sun is nothing out or the moon's not out a lot, I got to wear a headlamp. So
now that's a commercial barn.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to manage aggression, cannibalism, things like that.
But that's why they don't have really bright lights.
Right. If you get your lights above a certain level, you actually stimulate aggression and you can drive them crazy just with too much light. So.
Yeah, and they'll drive you crazy as a result. But what I do is, like you talked about, I plan way ahead. So instead of backing it up 30 minutes every week, I do it every 2 weeks to where I get them to 14 hours. So I like to wake them up with artificial light at the peak of season, December, January. My lights are on at 3:30 in the morning outside.
Yeah.
And
that's just barely 14 hours.
Right. Here's the thing. What I do is about every week, I will make a conscious effort to pay attention to what time the sun goes down, because I want to make sure my clock timer for my lights goes off hour and a half, 2 hours before the sun goes down. And I do 2 hours, which kind of a bit excessive, I know, but in the South, which I'm sure it's everywhere else, the sun don't always set at 6 o'clock. It may go down a little early, may go down a little late. The weather could be off, whatever. But I want that roosting, nighttime, bedtime, whatever you want to call it. I want all that to happen naturally.
That's the best results I've ever seen. When I maintain the flock in the backyard, and the chicken, no matter what, whether I put lights in the building or not, right? At sunset, they were all on the roost. So in a chicken's mind, sunset is the end of the day. I had very poor success trying to stimulate with any light in the evening, okay, after the sunset. They just ignored the lights and went to bed. That was my chickens.
I can see that because they know, like you said, they know. We want to think they're stupid, but they're really not.
They just act that way sometimes, but yeah, they're really not.
Yeah. So when you do that, you've got your light, you're going to have your best results with 14 hours. It's best to wake them up early in the morning so they can roost naturally at night.
Now, wait, hold on, because let's roll this back a little bit. Because I was talking about if you got like a 5, 6, 7-year-old hen, or you got a rooster in the same boat, 5, 6, 7-year-old rooster that you're still trying to get more chicks out of, you may have to take them as high as 16 or even 17 hours to get them fully stimulated. You can stimulate a first-year pullet and a second-year hen with 14 hours, working up to 14. But the older they get, the more stimulation they require. So just keep that in mind. They're not all going to be 14-hour birds.
But that's also in my mind, and I may be wrong. If I am, tell me. But my mindset, if I stop at 2 hours before, then the ones that only need the 14 hours of light are getting a solid 14 hours. But if they need more, they're going to get it naturally, but I'm not overdoing it by giving them light. Is that line of thinking right?
It can't be. We're already out of time for this episode, but don't worry. We'll be back next Tuesday with the conclusion of this great topic, so make plans to join us then.